Sharia law, the homosexual agenda, the ACLU. What do they all have in common? That's our topic on today's Roman Forum. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's edition of Roman Forum. Our guest, you're really going to enjoy this show. You're really going to enjoy this show. Our guest this week is Dick Thompson from the Thomas More Law Center. Welcome, Dick. How are you?
Thank you, Mike.
The Thomas More Law Center is probably one of the, should we say, leading warriors, big name warriors out there fighting the culture war right now. And I think a lot of people don't realize how important the courts are in all of this. You know, people go around, they live their lives, they work, they go home, they take care of the kids, they pay the mortgage, and the next thing they see a headline, gay marriage, okay. And they have no idea where that came from. But you guys understand the whole process and have begun the Thomas More Law Center to actually take the fight right to the courts, right?
Right.
Tell us a little bit about, first of all, the Law Center, and I got to ask you a couple of questions, because you and I go back a little ways, too.
Sure. Well, the Thomas More Law Center was started back in 1998, the latter part of 1998. It was co-founded by myself and Tom Monahan, famous Domino's Pizza founder, and now the Ave Maria University founder as well. And we realized that much of the direction of the culture in America was being determined by the courts. And that's where the ACLU had free reign. They'd walk into a courtroom, get a particular case satisfactorily decided, and then they would use that case as precedent throughout the country. And pretty soon we found that our legislative branch of government, which is supposed to decide these issues, were preempted by the courts. And as you know, once the Supreme Court makes a decision, there is no appeal. They decide.
Roe versus Wade.
Yeah, Roe versus Wade, and that's the primary one. They, out of thin air, they decided after 250 years that our founding fathers wanted to make abortion a constitutional right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, because of that one decision, abortion became a constitutional right. A few years later, they also decided that, you know, homosexuality, even though 17 years ago we said it was not a constitutional right, we've changed our mind. And homosexuality now is a constitutional right, and all the laws that criminalize homosexuality were found unconstitutional. The ACLU took those cases and have moved it along, and now we find the homosexual agenda in all the public school systems. We find the homosexual agenda has now infiltrated into our military, which I think is going to be a disaster for our national security over time. And so you see the ACLU, by just convincing a few judges, has been able to determine the direction of our culture. It has become a more secularized culture, and now religion is under attack. And so we said, you know, if we want to make a change in the culture, we have to fight on the same battleground that the ACLU is fighting, and therefore we got involved in forming the Thomas More Law Center as a cultural change agent, bringing it back to where our founding fathers thought our country would be. And so the Thomas More Law Center is a nonprofit public interest law firm, national in scope. Our mission is to defend and promote the religious heritage and moral values of Christians, which means time-honored family values, the sanctity of human life, religious freedom of Christians. And we also have a segment that, of our mission that says we support a national security, a free, independent, and sovereign United States of America. And that basically puts us in direct opposition to the ACLU, where we believe the war is going to be fought.
Now we're going to put up the banner here at the bottom that says Thomas More Lawcenter.org. What's the web address?
Okay, it's thomasmore.org. www.thomasmore.org.
Pretty simple.
Yep.
Why did you pick Thomas More as the name?
Well, you know what, that goes back to when I was a prosecutor in prosecuting
Here in Oakland County?
In Oakland County. And at the time, I was not a Catholic, but I was, prosecuting Jack Kevorkian because I felt he was violating the law. And
Otherwise known as Dr. Death.
Dr. Death, right. And we lost our few cases. And one day, one of our assistant prosecutors came into the office and said, "Hey, can I speak to you for a few minutes?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, "You know what? What you are doing reminds me of Thomas More." She was a Catholic, I wasn't, and I said, "Who's Thomas More?" And so she went ahead and explained it. I purchased the book, The Man for All Seasons, and read
Awesome
it.
book.
Yeah, awesome book. And so when the time came and I had converted to Catholicism and had to think of a name of the organization, I thought Thomas More would be apt. His last words before he was put on the scaffold was, "I die the king's good servant, but God's first." And I think that really today has more meaning than it did, back in 1635 when he said it, where Catholics now, even though they are faithful and loyal to our government, to the Constitution, they see what is happening, and therefore they're saying to themselves, "I'm a faithful servant of our country, but God's first. Therefore, we have to support the right of conscience and have the courage of our conscience." And so Thomas More really fits in nicely with what the culture war is about today in the United States of America.
Just as a little aside, you and I were talking before the show. I used to be a reporter and producer at one of the affiliates, at the time CBS affiliate here in town, while you were the Oakland County prosecutor here. And it was Jack Kevorkian and all the suicides and the death van and all that business where we first encountered each other in news interviews. But anyway, that's ancient history, right? Well, maybe not ancient.
Not ancient, but it's a long time ago. That was another chapter in my life.
Ditto.
But, as I indicated, Jack Kevorkian converted me to Catholicism.
Yeah, tell us that. That was very interesting listening to you say that.
Because, here's what was happening. The vast majority of our citizens in my constituency, my job was elected as an elected job, supported what Jack Kevorkian was doing. They felt, government shouldn't be interfering with a person's private decision to end their lives. And so Jack Kevorkian was this angel of mercy, ending the lives of people who were suffering excruciating pain and who wanted to die. Of course, most of the people that he killed were not terminally ill and were not suffering excruciating pain.
Yeah, his first two, Marjorie Once and Sherry Miller, they weren't terminally ill.
Nor was Judith Atkins, who was the first one, was suffering from the early stages of Alzheimer's. But what happened was when we would go into court, normally a prosecutor is wearing the white hat. Everyone's against homicides, murders, rapes, burglaries, you have it, the normal crimes. But as soon as you walked into court, prosecuting Jack Kevorkian, they were against you. Why are you going after this doctor who is trying to help people end their suffering? And so I couldn't just say, well, it's the law. I had to find out, why is the law a good law? And that ultimately led me to the church fathers. It led me to find out that St. Augustine, 1,500 years before, had talked about assisted suicide and the false compassion of saying, because my relative is suffering pain, I'm going to kill him or her, and that's going to make me compassionate. That's not compassion. Compassion is suffering with the individual and caring for them. And then, of course, John Paul II's Evangelium Vitae was another book that I read. It was interesting. One time I was being interviewed by a reporter for the Michigan Catholic, and he saw Evangelium Vitae on my desk, and he was saying, "Are you Catholic?" I said, "No, but this is very important to me." He pulled the book out and he said all the underlines I had in there. So that gave me, number one, the strength to persevere despite a lot of public opposition to it, because I thought it was doing the right thing. And ultimately, although I lost my election over it, it became the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember all that. I was a reporter covering all of that here in Detroit at the time, and remember all that uproar. And yeah, you had donkey ears on you in newsrooms.
And red nose. I mean, it was all of that, all that ridicule. But you know what?
I forgot about the red nose.
Jeffrey Feiger put that
red nose on.
But that's right. I mean, it was all the sarcasm, the ridicule that went on. But here's what happened. Even though 70% of the Michigan voters supported physician-assisted suicide, a couple of months, and Jack Kevorkian took advantage of that and had a bill or a referendum, a citizens referendum that was going to legalize physician-assisted suicide. All at once, the Catholic Church, the bishops in Michigan, decided they were going to take a stand. And then for a month or so, every week, the homilies were about physician-assisted suicide. The priests were out there talking to the parishioners. They had signs, yard signs, say no to Proposition B, Prop B. Within that month period, they turned the whole thing around. And so it was a lesson to me that when the church speaks out forcibly to its parishioners, the parishioners will respond favorably. And that was an incident that I remember that really etched it in my mind. When bishops speak out, the flock will follow the shepherd.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that Prop B went down like 60-40, didn't it?
Oh, 70-30.
Was it 70-30?
Yeah,
I knew it was wide.
It was wide. It just switched around, and that was because the Catholic Church got behind, opposing this thing. And so when the Catholic Church and its bishops and its priests speak out forcibly, explain why it's a bad law.
Tell the truth. Tell the truth and
right.
why it's the truth.
And people will follow.
Absolutely.
And so, we have that now with all the other issues that are going on. And then to end my story on why Jack Kevorkian converted me to Catholicism, my wife, Marilyn, she's a cradle Catholic.
Right.
And, but for 14 years we were married. For those 14 years, every time she would go to Mass every Sunday, she'd invite me to go along, and I'd spout a couple of verses that I knew from the Bible. And said, "Don't worry about it, I know this stuff." I would go to Mass with her on Easter and Christmas. But once I got serious about it, I asked her to contact Father John Hardin and see if he would bring me into the Catholic faith. So for me, it was more of an intellectual journey at the beginning because I was reading all these books. And then if you know Father Hardin, he was such a tremendous theologian. He explained everything. And I was blessed to have someone like him in the Detroit area that I could confer with.
Sure.
And I was brought into the church on March 25th, 1998. He celebrated the Mass, and he said, Richard, he said, to be a Catholic, to be an authentic Catholic means you have to carry the cross.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do, carry the cross. Wherever it leads us, we carry that cross.
It's absolutely true. We're going to take a quick break here and come back, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the cases, particularly in the area of Islam. We'll talk about Islam and how, is this a threat? People are like, you're being prejudiced. We'll find out and see your point of view on it. We'll be right back right after this. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rome Informed with our guest, Dick Thompson from the Thomas More Law Center and former Oakland County prosecutor here in the Oakland County of near Detroit, Michigan. Dick, tell us about about some of the cases that you take on now. We hear, like I said, I'm on the email feed, get your guys' press releases constantly, and I see an awful lot of things having to do with Islam and the encroachment on Christianity and the pushback and the advancement of this, and it's all being done through the courts. What do you see from a legal point of view, how do you see Islam incorporating into the United States?
Well, the way I like to describe it is that Islam is the Trojan horse of ancient times. We welcomed Muslims into our country, and we welcomed Islam because everyone thought it's a religion and that they should have the same free exercise of religion as other religions do. But in reality, Islam is more than a religion, it's a political ideology. They're not here to become Americans. They're not here to assimilate, they're here to dominate. And Islam, since its beginning, has viewed Christians, Jews, the so-called infidels as the enemy. And they've divided the world into two camps, Dar Islam, and that is the area that is controlled by Islam, and Dar al-Harb, which is the area that are non-Muslims. And so they're declaring war on non-Muslims all the time. And their goal is to dominate. Now, of course, we all know of 9/11. And at that point, the Thomas More Law Center got involved in looking at what was happening to our nation.
Yeah, because that was still in your infancy, right? It
Right.
started in '98 at the Law
Right.
Center, and then
Yeah.
2.5 years later.
We got involved in starting to really attack what was going on in our society with our case involving the Byron Union School District, where 7th graders, 12-year-olds, were given a 3-week intensive course on Islam. And this course outline starts off with, for the next 3 weeks, you will become a Muslim. It doesn't say you will learn about Islam or you will learn about becoming a Muslim. They said you will become a Muslim.
That's what you have here, right?
That's right. This is the book that they were using. And then I will just read just a couple of
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Here's,
Absolutely.
it says, this is the beginning student guide. From the beginning, you and your classmates will become Muslims. And then later on, your participation in this simulation is important to your own personal enrichment, to your group, and indeed to your entire class enjoyment. Your goal should be learning a great deal about Islam and its culture, striving for group success. And I won't go on, but then...
Does separation of church and state not extend to separation of mosque and state?
Right.
I mean, this is a public school.
This is a public school in California.
And of course, they have the, when this unit is over, they have the you will become Catholic,
Yeah,
right?
sure, right. Yeah, good luck. This is a part of that course. They had to take on Islamic names, and they had to wear name tags around their neck, the ID tags with those Islamic names. They were told to wear Muslim clothes. They were taught Islamic prayers, and they were taught to play a game called jihad against other cities. Now, when we brought this lawsuit in the federal district court, a federal district judge said, well, there's nothing wrong with this. It's basically role-playing, teaching kids about Islam in an interesting way. Well, as you just mentioned, try to teach kids about Catholicism or Lutheranism in an interesting way.
Yeah.
Teach them the Lord's Prayer or teach them how to accept the Eucharist. Of course, they would never allow that. There's a double standard in our public school system. We appealed the lower court's decision to the Ninth Circuit, the infamous Ninth Circuit Court
West
of
Coast
Appeals.
Ninth Circuit.
Yeah, the circus. And basically, what they said was, in an unpublished opinion, that they didn't see anything wrong with this as violating the Establishment Clause. Now, the interesting thing that I just mentioned was it was an unpublished opinion, which meant it could not be used by Christians as precedent. So they accepted this and said it was okay, but they did it in an opinion which was unpublished, so a Christian couldn't come by, a Christian teacher couldn't come in and say, well, you allowed Islam, so therefore we want Christianity. That was our first involvement.
What does that smack of it?
Well, it's a double standard.
Just listening to it, it smacks to me of something deliberate.
Well, it is. It's a double standard, and there is this antagonism towards Christianity generally,
Right.
and there is this more particularly antagonism against the Catholic Church,
Right.
because the Catholic Church is the main stumbling block that the far left has to overcome if they're going to get their secular agenda through. And so you see a lot of attacks on the Catholic Church. This is a California case, and another California case in which the San Francisco City and County Council passed a resolution attacking the Catholic Church because of their refusal to go along with adoptions by same-sex
It was like a
couples.
year and a half ago or so.
There was a little longer than that, but what happened in that case, they had this horrendous resolution. They talked about the Vatican as being a foreign country. They told the bishop that you should defy the orders of the Vatican. Yeah. They called it blatant discrimination, hateful. This is what they were talking about as it related to the Catholic Church. Let me tell you, or let me ask you, do you think they do that with Islam? No way.
Not if they're one of their buildings still standing.
Exactly. So there's this double standard going on. One of the things I always like to mention is we have to learn and remember the lessons of history. Back in 2005, Marine General Peter Pace, by the way, a very faithful Catholic, a daily communicant, who was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, he gave a lecture. And he said, if we want to know what Muslims are going to do, what the extremists are going to do, we have to read what they say, and we have to take it seriously. And then he goes back to history and said, you know, had we taken Hitler a little more seriously and read the Mein Kampf and know what he was going to do, we could have reacted differently, and we probably millions of lives would be saved. Now, Muslims throughout the country and in the United States, make no bones about it, they are here to dominate. Omar Ahmad, who is the co-founder of CARE, the Council of American Islamic Relations, this is what he said in 1998 to a group of Muslims. He said, Islam is not in America to be equal to any other faith, but to become dominant. The Quran should be the only book that is read. And then you have all these other Islamic imams saying the same thing. We are here to conquer America and the Western civilization, and we only have to look to Europe to see what is going on. Where in France there are 750 no-go zones where French citizens cannot enter because they are now areas that are occupied by Muslims primarily, and they don't want any other European or any other ethnic group to be in there.
It's interesting you say that, particularly France. One of the crew and I were over in France last summer, and in Marseille, and good luck, with the exception of the name of that town, that city, good luck finding anything French in it. It was like being in the Middle East. Right. Everything was Muslim. Everything was Islam.
So, and that, you know, actually Europe is no longer a Christian area. Right. I mean, they should be marked off, and I don't know if they'll be able to come back. But they even refused, the European Union refused to talk about the Christian heritage of the European Union.
Constitution, right.
When Pope Benedict XVI gave this speech, I was at Regensburg University, and he quoted from a 14th century Byzantine emperor that was critical of Islam, saying they've never brought anything that worthwhile to humanity except conquered by the sword and blood. Well, the Muslims proved him true right away. They were burning churches, they killed a nun. So we are dealing with the same thing here. All we have to do is look at history, look at what happened, what's happening in France and in England, and say, is this what we want in America? And right now we have some of our courts that are actually utilizing Sharia law to render decisions between Muslims. And you know, there's an act in Michigan that is, or a bill in Michigan that's lingering in the state legislature that is for American law, for American courts, which prevent any foreign law from being used if it violates the fundamental rights of citizens under the Constitution.
Well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the U.S. Supreme Court would probably object to that.
Right, saying, well, the Constitution is this ancient document, we shouldn't follow that. I mean, she said that a few weeks or months ago, saying that. So there is this culture war that's going on in America. It's being fought on all fronts, but primarily in the courts, because the ACLU goes to the courts immediately, and because they know all they have to do is
find a friendly
judge, and they use it as precedent.
I want to run to a break real quickly, but just I want to ask you this one question on the way out. How many invitations do you get for the annual galas and banquets from the ACLU?
I don't get any. Well, you know, and that's, to me, that's the mark of courage. Yeah, that's a mark of courage. No, I mean, they are the enemy, and they are here to deconstruct America, to get us separated from the principles of our founding fathers.
Well, that's exactly what I want to talk about in the next segment, and we can look at all of this, but you know, it's the what's really going on, what's the big push. We'll talk about that as soon as we come back right after this. Hello and welcome back to this edition of Rome Informed with Dick Thompson from the Thomas More Law Center. And we're talking about how the courts are being invaded and used to, you know, advance an agenda, which really seems kind of a bit of a hodgepodge if you look at it on the narrow sense, kind of the parochial level, you know, that the ACLU, for example, the enemies of mankind, seriously, would be pushing, Islam over Christianity, and at the same time advancing the homosexual agenda. Well, you'd think, well, don't the ACLU guys read Islam's press releases that we should kill all the homosexuals? And yet, what's going on? What's going on with the ACLU and the courts?
Well, the ACLU, from its beginnings in the 1920s, basically was a communist organization, and they were there to destroy America from the beginning. And they learned that to sound good to the American people, they had to take on a patriotic look. So that's why you see their emblem of the Statue of Liberty out there.
Just like NARAL with abortion.
Right, exactly. So it's all a game of mirrors and blue smoke. But basically, they are there to destroy the foundations of America as was established by our founding fathers. George Washington said, of all the dispositions necessary for political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports. And John Adams said, hey, our Constitution was made only for religious and moral people. You can go right down the line and you can see that this nation was founded on religious principles. In fact, going back to the Revolutionary War, you will find that the vast majority of churches at the time were the ones that were pushing the revolution against the king. In fact, in England, in Parliament, they would talk about it as the Presbyterian War because of the activity of ministers. So what we have is the ACLU wants to get their far left agenda through, and they have to destroy Christianity to do that. Then they will have to worry about Islam later on. But right now they look at Islam as a partner to destroy Christianity and its moral foundations.
A useful tool.
Yeah, a useful tool. Once you destroy the religious foundations, the Christian religious foundations of our nation, then everything else will fall apart. We will disintegrate. I mean, you start off with the Declaration of Independence, where our founding fathers said, we are endowed with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Right.
We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights.
A little phrase that our president seems to keep forgetting.
When they said Creator, what were they talking about? They were talking about a Judeo-Christian God, a God that created man in his own image. They weren't talking about Allah. They were talking about God. And if you say that our rights are we are endowed with those rights by our Creator, that means before government was even there, we had these rights. And as
sort of a Catholic sort of political, philosophical position
but they're
government's there to support the rights, not grant them.
Right, exactly. And the current administration is attempting to say we grant the rights, and they're trying to disconnect people from God. And that's the secular battle that is going on. And I'm very pleased to see that the Catholic Church is now becoming the church militant.
Yes.
And that's very important. Cardinal Raymond Burke, who was in town last week, he basically said back in November of 2011, he said, it is a war. And he was talking about the United States. He said, it is a war. And we have to realize that the church is going to be persecuted merely for articulating its doctrine, and Catholics are going to be facing prison time merely for believing in that doctrine.
Absolutely.
And then Cardinal George said, I will die in my bed, my predecessor will die in prison, and his predecessor will die a martyr.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's what we're facing. And now you see the Catholic Church starting to become the church militant. You see Catholic faithful starting to support the church in a way that I haven't seen in many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And
it's exciting.
It's very exciting. It's exciting times to be a Catholic.
You bet it is. Boy, you bet it is. One of the things we're fighting is the whole sense of what is marriage, which goes back to even before marriage. What is man? The anthropocentric. What is man? What's the nature of man? Who are we? Who are in relation to each other? And so to sort of destroy, for example, the underpinnings of marriage, because you've destroyed the anthropological understanding of what is man. it brings the whole edifice down, and that's
Yes.
the point. That's
Right.
exactly what's going. I mean, you brought here a couple of books for us. Here's
Well, these are,
this is the
King and King.
King. What is King and King?
This
We'll
is
take a look at
about
this.
two princes that fall in love and get married. Now, this is being read.
Two what?
Two princes, not princesses and a prince, but two princes.
Yes.
They fall in love and get married. Now, this is being read to kindergartners and first graders in the public school system. When the parents found out about it,
There's a series of them here.
yeah, and this one is when the two princes adopt a girl. Okay, now
So
look
these
at the
two-
colors.
So these two guys fall in love and get married.
They get married, and the next book is they then adopt a girl, and you see now this is what they're
So
showing.
They read this to kindergartners.
Yeah, and you'll see here they're the two princes kissing.
Aw, isn't that sweet? Look at
Yeah,
that.
well, I mean now you wonder how the homosexual agenda can get through, and that's because our public school systems are being indoctrination centers. And if you destroy marriage, which I believe the church says is the cell of society,
Sure,
what are
absolutely.
you going to have?
Yeah.
It is just horrible what's going on.
So what's the end game here with these guys? Is it just look? They're using the homosexual agenda. They're using Islam, which are those two are definitely opposed to each other. But clearly, the ACLU and that camp, not just that organization, but the camp, people who support it philosophically, ideologically, they found the my enemy's friend is my enemy, whatever, however the expression goes. What are they uniting against? I mean, they're pulling these. What are they uniting against?
They are uniting against the foundations of America. They know that if they can destroy the religious foundations of America, then people won't have anything to believe in. And if you don't believe in anything, you fall for everything. And that's one of the things that they're attacking. They're attacking the church, as I indicated before, that their main stumbling block to their far left agenda is the Catholic Church. And so they're attacking the Catholic Church day in and day out. And I'm not just talking about the ACLU, talking about mainstream media every chance they get. They're doing that to destroy the Catholic Church. And once they destroy the Catholic Church,
That's it.
that's it. They've destroyed any religious foundations that we have. And it's sad to say, many of our mainstream Protestant churches have lost their way. They've lost their way.
Yeah. Is there a what's the sense you have when you? I mean, you've been doing this now since '98, so it was 15 years or so. What do you have as far as when you come into contact with other attorneys? Who do you at Thomas More Law Center sense a different attitude or a different approach to you guys than you saw 15 years ago? Have battle lines hardened?
I think the battle lines have hardened. Most, sad to say, most major law firms are controlled by liberals. A lot of them will have pro bono sections where they say you should give some of your time, donate some of your time to charitable organizations, which the Thomas More Law Center is. But they refuse to allow their attorneys, some of them Catholic, to donate any of their time to the Thomas More Law Center. Now, these are major law firms, but the major law firms have no problem at all donating their time to the ACLU. Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
Because that is, that today is the popular agenda. Now, what I also do see is that there is still evangelical Christians that are joining us in this fight. They've set aside their theological differences, and they say we are still here in the battle. They want to save America. They know that America has its Christian foundations. And this fight about, the contraception mandate, the Health and Human Services mandate, has united both Catholics and Protestants. I've heard in several different venues where Protestant ministers get up and say, we're all Catholics now.
Right.
So there is this battle that's going on, but we are at a tipping point.
Yeah.
We can go one way or the other. Now, we're fighting the Mount Soledad Cross, and the ACO has been fighting that for many, many years, several decades. It's a cross that is a centerpiece of a memorial to veterans, and yet they don't want that cross there because of the symbolism it has. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said that the cross is unconstitutional. It's an establishment of religion, even though,
It's
in
private.
our view, it's on federal land now.
Yeah.
It's on federal land. Even though
There was a set aside for that, wasn't there?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It was a congressional act. They took the land. They made it a national veterans memorial of veterans of all wars.
Right.
And now the Ninth Circuit Court said that's unconstitutional. We now have an appeal up into the Supreme Court. But the point is that even though the cross is a religious symbol, it is also a symbol of self-sacrifice.
Sure.
And so many people who've lost loved ones know that when they go to that Veterans Memorial, even it's got that cross up there, they are not looking at it as an establishment of religion. They're looking at it as a place of solace, a place of comfort, where they can think about their loved ones who sacrificed their lives for that country, and basically most of them being Christian, sacrificed their lives for the religious freedom of Christians.
Right. Right. It's symbols matter.
Yes.
Symbols matter a great deal.
Right, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to remove every symbol from the public square. I'm talking about the ACLU,
Right.
because they say once we remove all the symbols, then we can go after the other things that are left.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I'm going to ask you, because I know we're going to do this, will you come back and be on the next show?
Absolutely.
I think let's talk on the next show specifically about this HHS mandate. It is quite the dilemma, quite the dilemma for people who want to believe and see the way the country's going under this particular administration.
Yes.
Dick
happy to.
Thompson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
God bless you, Dick. We'll see you on the next
You
show.
too. Bye-bye.
And you heard it there, the next show, Dick Thompson and the HHS mandate. Obamacare's ramming it down the throats of the church that you will accept his dictates, and I think we're going to get a little bit of pushback, won't we?
Yep.
God bless you. Thanks very much. We'll see you next week.